Almost everyone, or at least most of us, knows the popular TV game show Fort Boyard, which has been airing since 1990. The central object of this show is a stone fort located off the Atlantic coast of France, between the islands of Aix and Oléron. Today, we'll tell you about the history of this unique structure. Construction of the fort was completed in 1801. The finished fort was 223 feet, 68 meters long, 102 feet, 31 meters wide, and 66 feet, 20 meters high. Its 66 casemates could hold 74 artillery guns. The fort's garrison consisted of 260 people. In case of a siege, the garrison could survive for 2 months using its water and food reserves. It seemed like everything was ready for success. After monumental efforts, the fort was finally built and ready to fully justify the resources invested in its construction. But here's the irony of fate. By the time construction was completed, it turned out the fort was no longer needed. Over the 50-plus years since its foundation was laid, the range of artillery guns had significantly increased, allowing naval warships to easily cover the strait. Thus, the fort became obsolete. However, it remained under the control of the French military and was later used as a prison without ever engaging in combat. Its time as a prison didn't last long. In 1872, the prisoners were moved to a special colony on New Caledonia Island, and the fortress was taken over by the Navy. This gave Fort Boyard the status of a military facility, which it maintained until 1913, when the military finally abandoned it. The empty fort became an easy target for looters. Everything of value was taken. During World War II, Fort Boyard, like the rest of France, was occupied by German troops. The occupiers used the fortress as a training target for shooting practice, which destroyed its piers and breakwaters almost entirely. The inner courtyard was literally buried under piles of rubble. For the next 20 years, the fort was left in complete neglect, gradually deteriorating under the effects of the sea, wind, and seabirds. On May 28, 1962, Fort Boyard was put up for auction with a starting price of 25 feet, 7.5 meters, 1,000 francs, and was purchased by dentist Eric for 92 feet, 28 meters, 1,000 francs. However, he lacked the funds to restore the fortress, which continued to fall into disrepair, not only due to natural causes, but also because of numerous tourists who were literally dismantling it for souvenirs. Nonetheless, the world soon learned about this fort for the first time. In 1966, Robert Enrico filmed the final scene of his movie The Adventurers at Fort Boyard, featuring 2 stars of French cinema, Alain Delon and Lino Ventura. After a long pause, the fort appeared on screens again in 1980, this time in the game show Treasure Hunt, created by the renowned French television figure Jacques Antoine. He discovered Fort Boyard while watching The Adventurers and suggested using the fortress for a new TV game. Previously, the fort had appeared on screen only sporadically, but in the new game, it played a central role. At that time, the fortress was privately owned by the Belgian dentist. Following this, Jacques Antoine paid a symbolic sum of 1 franc to become the owner of the fort and began implementing his project. In 1989, restoration work began. A platform for ship docking was built 82 feet, 25 meters from the fort, as the old pier had long been destroyed. The inner courtyard was cleared of a 1.6 foot, 0.5 meters layer of bird droppings that had accumulated over many decades, along with nearly 2,297 cubic feet, 700 cubic meters of rubble. 2 halls were equipped for the TV game of the same name. A few months later, in 1990, the first episode of the TV game Fort Boyard was filmed, marking a new era in the fort's history. That's all for now, friends. Support us with a like and a share if you found this interesting. Also, check out the video about a woman who refused to leave her home out of greed and now lives between highways. And another video about the secret room at the top of the Eiffel Tower, which no one could enter for 100 years. Here's why.